I guess what I'd like to do is just really talk around sort of my background really and introduce a couple of things that I've been involved in. Some of the imagery we use in Deloitte, you see up there, is half of everything, and I think that pertains to the fact we like to really have the fact of getting inside the data from the inside out, and that's really a lot of the sense of the clients we work with at the moment. That's really what we try and do, is really understand the problem, get inside the problem and try and solve it. Enough about that for now. Talk a little bit about myself. So mechanical engineering. Actually, I went to sea for about 18 months. I worked on a coastal trading vessel as a marine engineer. And when John was talking about those big engines that used to power the seawater around, I actually worked on one of those when it was attached to the hull of a ship. Not very nice. I soon found out that I had soft hands and I got seasick very quickly. So not for me. I always had a kind of an interest in computing, and so I did a master's in control theory, control engineering. I followed that on with a PhD in engineering, really machine learning, and it's quite similar to some of the work that was talked around in the first piece about wafer fabs and stuff, yield enhancement. My PhD was in an area of research similar to that. So that kind of the kind of quantitative theme carried through. So I worked in a startup then after that for about a year and a half in algorithm development in plasma physics. And then from that I kind of thought, okay, I want to get into something a little bit different but use the same skills. So I went into banking, unfortunately. So I was in risk management, credit risk management. So I spent a good few years in risk management function, and one of the roles I had there was credit risk model development, some stress testing, some scenario analysis, all the sort of things on capital. You might hear capital, all the sort of things you hear about at the moment. They never listened to any of us at the time. So I went in there. There's a lot of quantitative skills used in industry that sometimes is slightly overlooked when you're looking at cool jobs and you look at what you really want to do. You can see pockets of where these skill sets are actually used. And one of the things that when I left banking, I went into consulting, and really with the onset of really to try and develop predictive analytical elements in the consulting firms. So currently my role in Deloitte, I lead analytics for the firm, and what that means really is it's all the work we do with all of our clients, and even some of the internal work we do. It's around how can we do it smarter, and how can we use techniques to do things in a more efficient manner. It's essentially, that's what it is. There's probably, you can define analytics in more ways than there is to define big data. It's the same thing. It's just really about understanding the data that you have and being able to answer really a business problem with that data. So it's the use of a couple of different skills, and what I've done from when I joined about a year ago is developed a team. We have about 8 guys there, 8 guys and 8 girls, mix of a team, and all of them have advanced degrees, and 75% of them have PhDs in kind of areas of engineering, computer science, physics. I think there's even a biomechanics person there as well. So really diverse skill sets. But when I was looking to fill the roles, I always went out with, you may have heard the term, excuse me, data scientist, and it's a term that I like and I've used a lot and for a number of years because it really encapsulates what we do as an organization. Deloitte traditionally, is an accountancy firm, but there's a recognition amongst all of the accountancy firms and all of the big firms that they have to tap into this area, which is analytics, in order to really compete, and competition it is. So when I look to fill the roles of people who are to come into the team as analysts, consultants, etc., it's really around finding people who can fit 4 areas. So it's about being numerate, quantitative in nature, but not overly techie. I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. Have the computationally proficient, know the way around a few systems. Basically understand business, have good business acumen, but most importantly is the ability to communicate, because I've spoken to a number of different people over the time, and some very, very smart people, but they just want to be locked away in a room with 5 computers. That's fine in the research environment maybe. What we're doing is trying to bring that, demystify it. We found we ran a week there last 2 weeks ago, Analytics Week in Deloitte. It was an internal event for our partners, directors, and everyone in the firm. We found that instead of telling people about what we try and do, the best thing was to really demonstrate it. And we put together 5 or 6 simple enough demonstrations, and got some people over the course of the week to come down and talk to us. And the first reaction was, I'm really busy, I have no time, or whatever. And about an hour later, they were still going through some of the demos just to see what we were doing, and how they could use it. So, that's kind of an important piece of it. Like, it is kind of demystifying the whole thing, and as I kind of mentioned, a traditional view, but the area I'm in is more non-traditional, and the data scientist view. And I think that it's a very, very big growth area at the moment. We see it in industry, we see it in consulting, we see it across the board. The use of techniques to really solve problems around data. Everyone's familiar with data, maybe big data, etc. So it's a massive growth area. I think one of the benefits of working in an organization like Deloitte is the LinkedInness to the global network. I mean, there's 250,000 people who work there. I was attending a conference 2 weeks ago in the university in Deloitte in Texas, and there was about 400 people from around the network who were the most involved in analytics in the network. And it was great to really hook up, make contacts with people, who will work together in the future. And it's really good in terms of collaboration to have that as a network. That's one of the benefits of it. But it's also a negative side, because there's a distribution piece of it, so you're not always located in the same geographical area as colleagues you want to work with. But you can overcome that these days. There's a lot of different areas we focus on in analytics, and it's a integrated market offering is what we call it in Deloitte, and it really boils down to 5 domains: customer, workforce, supply chain analytics, we have finance analytics, and I guess we also, very importantly, risk and regulatory analytics. So they're the 5 sort of domain areas of focus that we have, but that's kind of not split by industry. We work a lot in financial services, we work a lot in consumer businesses and public sector. You name it, we've worked with the clients. And I think where we differ from the traditional view is that we're working a lot with clients now who would have thought, what the hell is analytics? What do we do? How can we use that? And even something simple like, taking away some of the manual, laborious spreadsheet work to automating it. My team is pretty much they're an open source junkies. I am myself. We use R, we use Python, SQL, we use SPSS. We use a range of tools to get the job done, but we primarily like to try and prototype things in R, which gives a little bit of flexibility with the mindset. So we show people internally mainly, and we're finding actually since the event in I think it was 2 weeks ago, we've got a lot of internal people coming to us saying, like the demos, could we do it in this? Could we do it with this client? And saying, yeah, it's very possible. So half of my job is to face internally, and the other side is the client facing, which I do an awful lot of as well. So, in terms of a personal journey for me, I've always kind of been, well, barring the sides when I was getting sick over the side of the ship, I was always involved in sort of predictive analytics. I always liked the theme of predictive analytics, and I moved from the sort of startup into a more quantitative finance role, but always wanted to see where this can be broadened to be used. And the consulting environment is good for that, because you get access and to a lot of different clients. I think the other thing that we do a lot is try and develop and produce thought leadership, which is really around our position and how we do things. So we get a lot of time to do that. I always like to bring a bit of innovation from the guys who join the team. Say like 10% of your time, it'll be innovation. You can bring something to the table, and they're like that. Part of an inquisitive data scientist sort of mind is to have that. So I mean, as I say, I don't have any really, really nice slides to show you, but other than the fact that trying to really demystify what we do is we work with a number of different clients, and in my personal experience, they range from people who are pretty well who understand what analytics can be used for, and are pretty well engaged around analytics, to people who don't, and they just have never thought about maybe doing something in a different way. And that's part and parcel of my role. It's really to develop that capacity within the firm. I do have a broader role in terms of working internationally in EMEA and with the global guys, really to see what should we be offering in the market, what makes sense, and where will it be in about 5 years' time. So there's along the sides of the strategy, we'd work quite heavily in that space. So I'd also like, I actually tried to put down what I do on a day-to-day basis, believe it or not. And I have to, when I put it down, I said, gee, I didn't realize I did that so long ago. A lot of it is about, touching base with vendors, alliances, maybe academic alliances, be hooked into a lot of the universities. We're looking for research opportunities. And recruitment, there was a big ongoing recruitment initiative. I mentioned there's a supply and demand sort of imbalance there. There's a real big demand for quality graduates in the space. I'm a mechanical engineer, and there's tons of people who are computer scientists, electrical engineers. There's any numerate sort of degree is very, very useful in this environment. I think mainly it's about solving things, solving problems. So it's about using techniques to solve problems. So it's not about being firm with your thoughts. It's really about being, broad and being able to look at something from a different perspective. And I think what I mentioned in terms of the data scientists, it's an area that is kind of growing for our firm internally. And there's been pockets of people coming up through the firm, sort of data scientist people. But the main sort of piece that we look to have in that is the communication of the results, because we have a lot of good people there. But if you get up and you can't communicate the results, sometimes the value is lost. There's absolutely no value in doing any analytics at all until you communicate the results to the right people, and that's what we're trying to put together as a package. So that kind of wraps it up for me. I don't know whether I went too quickly or not enough, but if anyone has any questions, please fire away while I'm standing here.
You were saying earlier that you're kind of working with a team of about 16 people underneath you, but there's roughly 400 people involved in analytics globally in the company.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering kind of what sort of communication tools you use, like how integrated are you guys with your global counterparts?
Yeah, great question. We have, I think that what they call a Yammer, it's like a social network tool, pretty much instant messaging across that. We have the sort of, what you call the telepresence, excuse me, yeah. So we have all that sort of facilities. A lot of it's through traditional methods, pick up the phone, go and see people. But, I mentioned it's a benefit and a negative piece as well. Being kind of distributed can maybe delay sometimes your response times with people. But, I've had a pretty much favorable experience so far to date on that one,
How much of a business knowledge would you need to go into this kind of stuff? Because I'm a physics PhD student and I know nothing about business.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, because I shouldn't admit this on camera. Can we turn off the cameras? I didn't have much business knowledge, okay? It's not really, it's about having an acumen to pick it up. I think that's really the important thing. I think I've interviewed a lot of people, even in consulting, when I've been in consulting, but even before that in financial services, and some really extraordinary bright people, but you just think that they're very, very sort of specific on what they've done. And I see this a lot with a lot of PhD graduates coming out now, and the ones we tend to favor are the people who think a little bit differently and have done a bit of reading. And it can be as simple as that, doing a bit of lateral reading around the subject and be able to talk around it. So it shows that you won't just come in and expect everything to be in a nice box. You can work around that. It's in terms of answering your question, you need a little bit, but I think what I always like to do is get people who exhibit the will to learn, and show that as a real key strength, and they want to take it on. They want to be in consulting. It's a very fast-paced environment, very dynamic, and that's a nice way of saying it's sometimes quite challenging to work in, but it's very good because you get to work with tons of different of companies. I rattled off 5 key areas, and within those areas of analytics, there's tons of offerings. And what we're trying to do as a firm locally on my team, but also globally, is develop pieces that fit into that toolkit, so we can go and we can do a piece of analysis, pretty quickly. And that comes back to the innovation I talked about. I get some of the guys to work on, for instance, building me a propensity model in a telecoms environment. So we get some data, we work through how we'd actually go about and do that, and then we use the results and maybe go out to a client with it. So in answer to your question, a little bit, but more the ability to, Thanks very much, guys.